As the two subjects of tonight's live video are the two big issues of the year, coronavirus and police brutality. So let's just start with a little one about Zoom, because there's a particular comment, a particular instruction that has become very popular, as needs must, over the last 6 months. So this one is particularly for those of you who are fans of the Specials or Prince Buster or anyone else who has ever recorded the song Enjoy Yourself. Familiar with the song Enjoy Yourself? Enjoy yourself, etc. It's later than you think. Enjoy yourself. Okay, so I want that song in your mind while I do this one. This is called Unmute Yourself. Unmute yourself, because it's your turn to speak. Unmute yourself, your words will be unique. The meeting is in progress and you don't look very sleek. Unmute yourself, because it's your turn to speak. Hello, I'm Janine, and I'm going to unmute myself first. Your lips move, your face shows dismay, but your audio has gone quite astray. Unmute yourself, please do have your say, or if not, click chat and type away. Unmute yourself, because it's your turn to speak. Unmute yourself, your words will be unique. The meeting is in progress and you don't look very sleek. Unmute yourself, because it's your turn to speak. Your cat's walking over your screen. Your house does not look very clean. Your countenance seems rather green. The books on your shelves are obscene. Unmute yourself, because it's your turn to speak. Unmute yourself, your words will be unique. The meeting is in progress, but you don't look very sleek. Unmute yourself, because it's your turn to speak. Unmute yourself, because it's your turn to speak. Good evening and welcome to Janine versus Cops and COVID. And I have unmuted myself so you can hear me ranting on the two subjects for the next hour. Please feel free to use the comments box to comment at will. Of course, you know, we're doing political subjects tonight, so if you want to post comments about that, that's fine. And particularly if you want to post comments that are links to articles and campaigns and stuff that you want people to support, please do that. Okay, so right at the start, we're going to start off with some on coronavirus, then we're going to do some cops stuff, and then we're going to come back to coronavirus at the end. And right at the start of the pandemic, one of the first poems I wrote was this next one I'm going to do. And it's a type of poem, it's called a villanelle. So mostly I just do kind of ranty poetry, but sometimes I do indulge myself in the classic forms of verse. One of my favourites of which is the villanelle. It's a 19-line poem that has repeating lines in it. The most famous one of them is Dylan Thomas's "Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night." So I thought I'd tell you that because there are lines that repeat. And if I didn't tell you it was a villanelle, you'd probably think I was just too idle to write any new ones. But no, this is a villanelle. And it's about that. Do you remember that thing at the start of the pandemic? And I think it's kind of making a bit of a comeback now as well, which is not to worry. Don't worry about coronavirus. It's only the old and sick people who die, as though they don't matter. So this one is called Dispensable Others. Accept our rule and stop this hue and cry. Some loved ones have to go before their time. It's just the weak and sick and old who'll die. We have a theory here to justify. Our nudging unit thinks it's just sublime. Accept our rule and stop this hue and cry. No need to test or rest or notify. Our British stock is mostly in its prime. It's just the weak and old and sick who'll die. Forget your fragile neighbours and apply survival of the fittest paradigm. Accept our rule and stop this hue and cry. No need to stockpile meds or panic buy. Those stocks go down as virus figures climb. It's just the weak and sick and old who'll die. If you're not young and fit, you're by the by. Bring out your dead and sound the sorrow chime. Accept our rule and stop this hue and cry. It's just the weak and sick and old who'll die. Okie dokie. So, the other thing we've all been learning about over the last 6 months is R, capital R, or as Boris Johnson insists on calling it, the R number, because he can't possibly say the letter R without putting the in front of it and number after it. Okay, and I'm sure you've heard the sciencey types explain what R means and what that means for policy against the pandemic, but I thought you might appreciate a poetic explanation of R from my good self. So this one is called R is less than 1. R is the reproduction ratio of a virus, the average number that each infected person infects. R is the rate at which viruses spread. When R's above 1, expect more and more dead. R is the ratio of patients to beds. R is the hospital wards overrun. We have to keep R below 1. R can be reduced by practical measures by government to protect those fighting the virus. R is the ratio of lies versus facts, of promises made versus definite acts, of testing delivered and PPE packed. R is the rotation of truth being spun. We have to get R below 1. R equals C times P times D, where C is susceptible people in contact, P is the probability of transmission, and D is the duration of infectiousness. R is reserves reduced by austerity, equipment stores empty while a few see prosperity, and privatisation peaks the severity. R is the risk that too little is done. We have to keep R below 1. R is restricted by minimising the number of people with whom an infected person comes into contact. R is reluctantly still going out to work for the wages they can't live without. With a scarf round their face and a head full of doubt, R is redundancies jumping the gun. We have to get R below 1. R is the rate at which rights are undone, the ratio of losses to victories won, of progress abandoned to progress begun. R is the hospital's profiteers run, the sales of the Mail, the Express and the Sun. R is repeats when this nightmare is done. We have to get R below 1. Thank you very much. How are we doing out there? Everyone all right? Good. Just going to do your poem that I actually wrote just before the pandemic hit us, but it became spookily relevant once it had all kicked off, because you might remember right at the start of the year that the Tories announced that post-Brexit we were going to have a new set of immigration rules, and under this new set of immigration rules, unskilled people wouldn't be able to come to the country. And as I said at the time, unskilled people like care workers. That didn't impress an awful lot of people, because most people know that care workers are very, very, very far from being unskilled. Okay, so, all right, this poem at the time is called Unskilled. You don't have skills. You're just a carer, a labourer, an apron wearer. You smear on creams and dish out pills. You don't have skills. You have no skills. You just wipe arses, the underside of the underclasses. You wipe up drool, make tea and chat. Where's the skill in that? You're a manual handler, a heavy lifter, a later night, an early shifter. You're a miracle worker, a first responder, a 15-minute magic wonder. You're a jargon buster and explainer, understander, try againer, food preparer, medicator, burden bearer, educator, precious company, friend and neighbour, rarely grumpy, spirit raiser, hoister, shopper, cleaner, duster, moisture mopper, dose adjuster, symptom spotter, reading taker, note jotter, arrangement maker, passage easer, pain reliever, comfort giver, friend for griever. You don't work with lathes or drills. You don't have skills. Your wages barely pay your bills. You don't have skills. You're patient, caring, brave, strong-willed, but still unskilled. That's why that vacancy's unfilled. Thank you very much. Thank you kindly. Actually, at this point, I'm going to plug the Most Excellent Safe and Equal campaign, which is doing some fantastic campaigning on issues relating to not just care workers, but everyone else who is on the front line fighting this pandemic and who's being persecuted through not having 100% sick pay or isolation pay, which in turn puts everyone else in danger because you can't afford to stay at home. So please, safe and equal. Okay, so what are we going to do next? We're going to clap for carers. You remember that earlier in the year? 8 o'clock on a Thursday night, standing outside your house, clapping for the carers. So, this is my poem about clap for carers. Claps at windows, claps at doors, claps with power and verve. Wave on wave of loud applause our care workers deserve. Applause spread fast round our estate. Applause made us unite. Applause helped us appreciate the ones who lead this fight. Claps ring through the evening air. Claps are on the BBC. Claps show them how much we care. But workers need their PPE. Applause is strong. Applause is good from isolation cages. We'd keep on clapping if we could applaud them better wages. Boris Johnson claps and waves, and Hancock hails them heroes. But Tory leaders froze their pay and pegged their rise at zero. Applause fills streets and shakes the trees. Applause with warm sincerity. But hospitals are on their knees from a decade of austerity. So clap for workers, night and day, who need more than our charity. Let's march in millions when we may and strike in solidarity. Thank you very much. Okay, so yeah, do what you can to support our health workers who are fighting for a decent pay rise and for better working conditions, putting themselves at risk every day, and deserve a great deal more than just repeatedly being called heroes by people who then won't even give them a decent living. More on that subject shortly. But while we are still on the subject of PPE, it's one of those words, isn't it, that a year ago hardly anyone knew, and now everyone knows. I was one of the people who did know what it was a year ago because I work on the railways and we have PPE. So other people who work in industries where you need personal protective equipment did know what it is, but then everyone else found out as well. But I thought I'd produce a kind of handy guide for what PPE stands for. For those who don't know, so this one is called PPE, Personal Protective Equipment. Proves particularly effective preventing pandemic excretion polluting public environments. Profit pursuers expect priority. Private enterprise prevails. Purchasing essentials proves prohibitively expensive. Production postponed, exhausted. Public protectors endangered. Political patent expired. Pay packets empty. Premier's proxy explains. Patience, please, everyone. Pen and paper exercise. Piss poor excuse. And the next poem is a bit of a rude one. So I'm announcing that tonight the watershed is at 7:18 p.m. which allows me to do this poem, which does have a rude word in it repeatedly. And I don't mean Tory, which crops up in a lot of my poems, obviously. Okay, so Yeah, there was a hashtag right at the beginning. Some people still use it now, and it kind of pisses me off a bit because it kind of I don't know. There's a certain level of privilege attached to it, I suppose. That I wanted to call out of it anyway. So this is called "Stay the Fuck Home." Stay the fuck home, they yelled at a grey-haired man in a supermarket that they were also in. Stay the fuck home, they insisted. Follow government guidelines, which aren't actually for everyone to stay the fuck home. Stay the fuck home, they typed, logged in to the company account, working from home on full pay. Stay the fuck home, they said, from a home in which they are not beaten or abused. Stay the fuck home, they posted, from their comfortable and well-stocked house, which remains comfortable and well-stocked due to the labours of the people who do not stay the fuck home. Stay the fuck home, they urged. Ignore the people who need you. Don't feed them or help them or heed them. Stay the fuck home, they demanded, polishing pitchforks with 2-metre long handles so they can use them while maintaining social distancing. Stay the fuck home? How about instead pay full fucking sick pay and decent fucking benefits? Fucking house the fucking homeless, deliver fucking food to people's fucking houses, look after the fucking poor and the fucking vulnerable. Show some fucking solidarity. I did warn you. So that poem is included in this book here. See this book on the wall? In fact, I'll give you a closer look at the book. So this book, there you go. This book is called Coronaverses. Coronaverses, poems from the pandemic. And when this whole pandemic-y thing started, I realised that a lot of people would turn to poetry because, you know, bad things happen, people write poetry. Something in the nature of poetry. Not always good poetry, but poetry nonetheless. So I set up a Facebook group called Coronaverses, Poems from the Pandemic. And the idea was that I thought maybe a few people might want to post some stuff in there, help them, you know, get through it, a bit of act of solidarity and stuff. And it really took off. And hundreds of people joined and started posting hundreds of poems. And there's nearly 1,000 people in that group now. Do sign up to it if you want to post poems or just read other people's. And we had such an avalanche of great poetry that we soon realised that we could do an anthology and put together this anthology of poems written just in the first week of isolation. And from about 200 or 300 poems that were posted during that week, myself, with the help of Attila the stockbroker, selected 60 or so of the best of them and put them in this here book. Having said the best of them, given that Stay the Fuck Home is in there, that might not suggest a particularly high standard, but actually they are really, really good. We're really impressed by, you know, there's some long established poets in there, but there's some people who don't usually write poetry, who maybe not even consider themselves to be poets until they wrote something good enough to be included in there. The other thing I want to tell you about this anthology is that it is raising money for a fantastic organisation called We Shall Overcome, which has the fantastic slogan, a raised fist and a helping hand. So it's an anti-austerity group of musicians and poets who put on gigs in normal times and do this kind of things in abnormal times, and raise money for community-based projects of resistance. And all the proceeds, because we have covered the costs now, all the proceeds from this book are going to We Shall Overcome to continue that excellent work. It costs, as a print book, it costs £8. As an ebook, it costs £3.99, I think, something like that. Anyway, you can buy both via my web shop, which is www.janinebooth.com/shop. And if people would like to buy that book, I would actually, you know, really appreciate that. And you won't regret it, you know, because there is some really very, very good stuff in there. People of a certain age, that certain age being even older than me, actually, might remember a sitcom from the 50s and 60s, probably, that was first on the radio. And then it was on the TV. And for some reason, the daily briefings, do you remember the daily briefing? Briefings on coronavirus. The daily briefings that we had earlier this year reminded me of this particular sitcom. Can't think why. This is called Hancock's Half Hour. Broadcast at 5 o'clock to millions of eager viewers. Our hapless hero tackles the latest crisis, trying to sound authoritative, but never quite in control. His spivvy mate usually gets the better of him. It's not railway cottages, it's Downing Street. It's a situation, but it's not comedy. Cool, excellent. So yeah, briefings. That's a daily briefing thing. Glued to that for the first few months until they stopped it. And I worked out that they had a particular formula, the government, for how to run a daily briefing. So I thought I'll codify it in a poem. So this is called How to Run a Daily Briefing. If you can, find figures that make Britain look better than other countries. If you can't, then explain that foreigners count differently from us Brits. If asked questions about health and care workers, say that they are heroes. If pressed about their PPE, tests, working conditions, or isolation pay, say again that they are heroes. Repeatedly state that you are following the science. Ask scientists to explain this. Remind viewers how much worse it would have been if the government had done nothing at all. Spend 20 seconds washing your hands of all responsibility. Because, of course, one of the other things they like to say to us is that, it's a time of crisis, so we really mustn't be political. Not sure what they think politics is for, not for times of national or indeed global crisis, I imagine, but yeah, don't be political. So this poem is called Life and Death and Politics. This is no time for politics, for critics, or for lobbing bricks, for calling names or stones and sticks, for challenging, for landing kicks. The time's not right for your point scoring, rival party leaders warring, disagreements jolly boring, disrespecting people mourning. How very dare you criticise your leaders when your doctor dies? You commoners don't realise there's only so much money buys. So when is the time for politics? When it's all over, all is fixed, the weak are dead and no one's sick, the body's buried, layers thick. So mask your mouth, keep quiet and wait until the designated date. That's when we'll have this debate, when it's all over, when it's too late. Thank you very much. Yes, and alongside the, don't make it political mantra, one of the other favourite mantras of Matt Hancock and the others was that COVID doesn't discriminate, that COVID is a great leveller. And, pathologically, that might be true in terms of COVID as a bug, COVID as a virus, maybe it doesn't discriminate. But a cursory glance at the figures will show that death rates were very much higher amongst frontline workers, amongst Black ethnic minority communities, etc. So that got me thinking. That got me thinking, does this virus discriminate? And I ended up writing this very short poem on that subject called All in the Same Boat. They were all in it together, all in the same boat. From upper deck to lower, they'd sink as one, or float. But some folk were in first class, and they got out alive, while others were in steerage, and they did not survive. The ship had too few lifeboats, and the lookout on the prow saw the iceberg didn't discriminate. as the virus doesn't now. And one more on that particular subject. And this one is a haiku. I mentioned again that I do like to do the L formal types of poetry. Time. Haiku, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables, 3 lines, not allowed to rhyme, etc. Freeborn John was one. Coronavirus isn't a great leveler. Okay, so for those of you who are not immediately getting that one, your homework is to Google Freeborn John, because you want to know about him anyway. You really do. Bit of education. Excellent. So, where have we got to? Yeah. Okay. So that's enough coronavirus for now. We'll come back to some more on coronavirus before the end, but I want to move on to some about police brutality and the ongoing Black Lives Matter movement, which has hit the headlines more, and a lot of us have been supporting during the course of this year and before and in future as well. And this is one that I wrote shortly after the murder of George Floyd. Sorry, I wrote it after seeing a photo of the guy who did it, Derek Chauvin, is that his name? Wearing a white power, make America white again, or something like that, proving what a racist he is. So it's called Bearing Down. The white power cap on the top of the head of the cop, with his knee on the neck of the man on the floor by the passenger door, who said, "Please, I can't breathe," and who called for his mum, stopped responding, went numb, but still bore the knee on his neck and the weight and the hate of the cop who still wouldn't stop. The weight of the state bears down on the neck of the blacks and the poor and the natives. The law, which claims to be fair, takes aim without care. Justice, a farce based on race and on class. Thank you very much. So actually, one thing I'm going to recommend here is I did some video interviews with some black activists earlier in the year, and they're all on YouTube. They're all on I think they're all on my YouTube channel, Janine Booth. I think they're also all on the Workers' Liberty YouTube channel as well. So if you want to watch those, they're very good. I'm just saying that because I did the interviews, but I learned a lot from all 3 of them actually, and I think they are well worth a watch. Yeah, Donald Trump, eh? When the looting starts, then the shooting starts. Okay, so in response to that, what's he think? He's a poet or something? Don't think so. In response to that, I wrote this. It's called Uproot, Depart. When the looting starts, then the shooting starts. Well, when did the executing start? When did the racist recruiting start? And when will the prosecuting start? That's when the men in suits will start elocuting parts and refuting parts, diluting and disputing parts, computing charts and polluting hearts. When the shooting starts, that's when the persecuting starts, the saluting and jackbooting starts. When truth departs, expect the pursuit of justice to start, with boots on feet and fire in hearts, to tear this brutal rule apart. Thank you very much. Cheers. Do I need to catch up with some comments here? Oh my goodness, there's over 100 of them. I can't possibly read all of those while still waffling on at you guys. Do keep commenting. If I don't catch up on them during the show, then I will catch up with you after the show. And if you've got stuff you want to raise, links you want to post about these subjects, please do. I'm also going to say, I haven't done any begging yet, okay? But for lots of us performers, I don't earn all my living as a performer, but it is some of my living. So the end of gigs, the suspension of gigs due to lockdown has been something of a problem. So I'm not charging anyone for when I do online gigs. Don't want to do that, but I would ask you, pop to my shop, buy something from there. There are books, so there is. I've already shown you the coronavirus book. I'm not getting any money from it. I have some of my own books, poetry books there as well, such as Disaffected Middle-Aged Women and The 3 R's, Ranting, Rhyming, Revolting. And my most recent one that I haven't got with me at the moment called Fighting Tories, The Force Awakens. And I've got some other books, I've got some merch, and, you know, there is nowhere else on the whole internet that you can get Mostly Hating Tories fridge magnets, apart from in my shop. So please do call in there and order some stuff. The next thing it says on my list is one and all. And I think it will become clear as this one carries on what it is I'm getting at. When my team lost to a goal 5 minutes from the end of the match from a free kick that should never have been given and got relegated and my face went down with them, you didn't say all football clubs matter. When you and I walked together down the high street and saw that woman with the clipboard and looked at each other and stopped and signed her petition against the local hospital closure, you didn't tell me that all hospitals matter. When you held my clammy hand outside the window door of the ward full of tiny bodies in tiny glass tanks with massive drips and monitors that we willed to keep on beating, you didn't point out that all babies matter. Everything matters only when everything matters. So, of course, the fight against racism isn't confined to the USA. And there's been lots of anti-racist activism in Britain. But I do want to mention this one because wasn't it brilliant? Wasn't that statue of Edward Colston going for a swim in Bristol? That was great, wasn't it? And people getting in a flap about it because, I don't know, what did he do? Gave some money to some schools? Yeah, money he made through trading in slaves. And the idea that chucking this geezer in the river was some kind of great affront to our history is absurd. Yes, it should be in a museum, not in the sea, but people have been asking for it to go in a museum for years and nothing happened. Then they threw it in the sea and then it was put in a museum. So there you go, job done. Anyway, I started writing little silly 4 lines that rhyme type poems about this, and I wrote 4 of them in the end and decided to stick them all together and put it under the heading Slaughterer in the Water. Action scene in Bristol is truly unforgettable. Poor old slaver Colston, no longer on his pedestal. Colston was a slaver, a taker, not a giver. Protesters did a favour, now Colston's in the river. We can't go to the boozer, we can't go to the barber, but we can tear that slaver down and chuck him in the harbour. 19,000 slaves were killed and thrown into the sea. Edward Colston's statue's end seems very apt to me. Okay, so just in case anyone was under the illusion, I've no doubt none of you good people watching this were, police killing black people in America is not new. I started off as a poet. Well, I'm in my second life as a poet. I did a bit of it in the 1980s and then I stopped for 25 years and started again in 2014. And I've repeatedly had cause to write poems about the police killing black people in America. So I'm just, as a reminder, going to do a couple of those. So this next one is from 2015, which is the year after the police in Cleveland shot dead a 12-year-old boy called Tamir Rice, who was playing with a toy gun in a playground. And the person who rang the police said, I think it's a toy gun, but they turned up and shot him dead anyway. And then when there was inquiry into it over the following year, although a judge had said it looked like the shooter, a copper called Timothy Lohman, looked as though he should be prosecuted, 2 reports then came out saying that his actions in shooting dead a 12-year-old playing with a toy were, quote, justified. I wrote this poem, it's called Justified. Tamir Rice, shot down twice. First his life, And then his name, Deadly Cops and Children's Game, Lerman Wins, Mortal Sins, Bloodlust and Pride, Justified. The caller said he's just a boy, told 911 the gun's a toy. Surveillance footage hasn't lied. Restraint discussed? Not even tried. 2 seconds after he arrived, he fired his shots and Tamir died. Justified. The judge implied he must be tried. Perhaps not now, he's justified. His actions were reasonable. It's barely believable. The verdict's appealable, but a 12-year-old life is not so redeemable. Justified. Expert sanctioned homicide. Sanctimony sanitized. Reports will read like lullabies. This young life is nullified. Justified. Devils blushed and angels cried. Justified. Justice brushed aside. Justified. And the same year, 2015, so the year after Tamir Rice was shot dead, Officer Michael T. Slager decided that having a cracked rear taillight on your car was an executable offence, as he shot dead Walter Scott, a black man, and then was charged with murder. He ended up being convicted of a few years later of something a bit complicated, but did get a bit of, a fair chunk of prison time. But it was unusual that he was charged with murder at all. So anyway, I thought I'd prepare I'd imagine his defence for him, what might be a useful, effective defence for Michael T. Slager. And this is called Officer Slager's Defence. Officer Michael T. Slager, how do you plead to the charge of the murder of Walter L. Scott? I plead not guilty on the grounds that it is well established that it is lawful for a white cop to kill a black person. I plead not guilty on the grounds of provocation. He was black in a public place. How is a responsible officer supposed to react? I plead not guilty on the grounds that he was running away and therefore obviously guilty of having a broken tail light. I plead not guilty on the grounds of self-defence. As a white cop, I believed him to be black and threatening. I had to protect myself. I plead not guilty under the stand your ground law. I stood my ground and shot him 8 times. I plead not guilty, not on the grounds of temporary insanity, but of permanent inhumanity. I plead not guilty on the grounds that it is well established that it is lawful for a white cop to kill a black person. I cite the following case law. Officer Daniel Pantaleo killed Eric Garner, New York City, no charge. Officer Darren Wilson killed Michael Brown, Ferguson, no charge. 2 officers shot and killed Gabriela Navarez in Sacramento, no charge. I rest my case. The defendant shall rise. Officer Michael T. Slager, your plea is rejected on the grounds that, although it is indeed lawful for a white cop to kill a black person, it is a crime to be filmed doing so. Guilty of murder and extreme carelessness. And of course, after the deplorable news this week, we could add Breonna Taylor to that list, as none of the cops who killed her are going to be charged with murder, and 2 of them aren't going to be charged with anything at all. Okay, so which Tory was it? It was Raab, wasn't it? Dominic Raab, the creeps he does. Dominic Raab, who seems to think that the taking the knee thing was something people had copied from Game of Thrones. I was going to write a poem about people getting confused between the words bend and take, but it got a little bit vulgar, so I abandoned it. In any case, Dominic Raab seems to think that taking the knee only started this year or maybe last year, but it's actually been around for a few years. And yeah, so I wrote this next poem in 2017 about the American footballers who were taking the knee, Colin Kaepernick and others, and who are being slagged off for it by people who said they shouldn't politicise sport and stuff like that. So I wrote this poem. It's called Off Your Knees. Keep politics out of sport. Black lives may matter, but all that matters here is the score. Keep politics out of football, because standing up for the national anthem is not political, but kneeling for it is. Keep politics off the pitch. Offence and defence are matters for the field of play, not for the field of struggle. Keep politics out of sport. Do your duty, entertain, don't complain, forget those folks who can't be at the game. Play for us, throw for us, put on a show for us, tackle them hard for us, run 40 yards for us, deliver our sport for us, don't ask for support from us. Keep politics out of sport. Keep your protests out of our faces, know your places, touch down your ball, run down your races. Stuff your justice, think of your career. We just want to score to cheer. Get off your knees and stand up. Okay, so we're going to get back onto the subject of coronavirus in a sense. Before I move off finish the poems on racism, police brutality, but please do check out, I have got more stuff about that subject on my website, janinebooth.com, not just poems I've written, but some stuff about black poets, some stuff about anti-racist campaigns, things like that. Please check out my website for that. There's also a fantastic list of resources and reading and videos on the Workers' Liberty website about anti-racism, which I seriously recommend you check out. Okay, so back to COVID. I can be a bit, as people know me, will testify, I can be a bit pedantic about words. And sometimes words and phrases kind of touch my buttons a bit. And one that pressed my buttons a bit over COVID was repeatedly hearing about the number of people who had lost their lives. Very short, this poem, very short, 6 lines. It's called Not Lost. 40,000 people have not lost their lives. They did not leave them behind or forget where they put them. They did not misplace them. Their lives were taken. Yeah, messed up my set list a bit there, and I haven't finished the ones about racism and injustice at all. So we're going to go back to those and then go back to the COVID ones in a second, because I can't possibly not do this one. The amount of energy myself and various other comrades are putting in at the moment to the campaign to free Osim Brown. Okay, so Osim Brown is a 21-year-old black autistic learning disabled man who is currently approaching the end of a prison sentence for not stealing a mobile phone. Yes, you heard that right. It was a joint enterprise conviction. And under joint enterprise, you don't have to have committed the crime. You just have to be somewhere near the people who committed the crime. And it particularly helps if you're black, because black people are 11 times more likely than white people to be convicted for joint enterprise crime. 11 times. Explain that away with any explanation other than racism. Anyway, Osim's story gets worse. Because he was born in Jamaica and came to Britain when he was 4, he has a deportation order against him as soon as he's released from prison, and he's been given a release date of the 7th of October, so less than 2 weeks away. He's going to be taken into immigration detention and deported to Jamaica, a country where he has no family, no friends, doesn't know anyone, where there isn't a support system in place for someone with his needs. It's absolutely dreadful. We have a massive campaign against this that more and more people are getting involved with. The petition, if you add your name to his petition, that I think nearly 50,000 people have signed now. If you add your name to his petition, you will then get mailings updating you about the campaign, and you can come on protest and you can write to your MP and stuff like that. But yeah, Osim Brown, I wrote a poem about him called Free Osim Brown. Teenage British black autistic prosecuted by the Crown, against the evidence convicted. Free, oh free him, Osim Brown. To care from place to place, 28 times moved around, neglected, let down, failed, displaced. Free, oh free him, Ossiem Brown. Fearing exile to Jamaica, left at 4, it's unknown. Prison cell, a spirit breaker. Free, oh free him, Ossiem Brown. Stand for justice and compassion. Tear the prison fortress down. Solidarity and action will win your freedom, Ossiem Brown. Thank you. Please support the campaign to, in effect, save this young man's life and give him care rather than punishment and deportation. Whenever equalities, any kind of equalities issue is a big issue in the news, whether it's racism, sexism, homophobia, etc., there's always quite a rush from people in power to be seen to do the right thing. Kind of all right, really, isn't it? Except often that response then gets really bureaucratized. And not just on equality issues, on all issues of justice and climate change and stuff like that. And it ends up being just done way over your bloody head, right? And there are numerous communities of marginalised people, whether it's autistic people or black people or others, who are just getting a little bit sick of all these discussions being about us without us. So I wrote this poem about this. I'm going to dedicate this to Lucy because I know she's watching and I know she really likes this one. Okay, so this is called Livid Experience. Please pipe down in the gallery. Desist from this distraction. We're formulating policies, endorsing plans of action, a green paper on climate change, a white paper on race, a ream of runic regulations codifies your place. We have a packed agenda that we're working our way through. So don't disrupt proceedings when we're talking about you. We have a police liaison group and funding for research. We're raising their awareness while they step up, stop and search. We ran a consultation and we filed it on our shelves. We've listened to your advocates appointed by ourselves. We have a stack of data sets, so we don't need your view. So please do not disturb us when we're talking about you. We've launched a social partnership with experts on the board, and if we tick another box, they'll give us an award. We have a roadmap taking shape that tells us what you need. So stand back, let the grown-ups rule and let the leaders lead. We won't put up with heckling. We've important work to do. So mind your bloody business when we're talking about you. You'd know that we are jolly nice if you had ever met us. We'd love to be more open, but our sponsor wouldn't let us. You think your lived experience gives you some kind of right, but we won this commission, see, it's there in black and white. You know a life of struggle, you're the many, we're the few, but we'll work out the answers while we're talking about you. Now please fill in this feedback form and forward for review. We might flick through it when we finish talking about you. Ah, there you go. Okay, justice. Yeah, on the subject of justice, it really does appear to be a different law for them and a different law for us. As you might have noticed the other day, but I found a way of excusing yourself for minor breaches of the law. This is called breaking the law. I'm going to do some cash in hand work in a specific and limited way. I'm nicking these pens as a justified perk in a specific and limited way. I'm a bit short on cash, so I won't pay my bills in a specific and limited way. I'll slip in some extras as I go through the tills in a specific and limited way. And then I will chill with a spliff or a bong in a specific and limited way. Safe in the knowledge I've done nothing wrong in a specific and limited way. At the end of the day, I know it's okay. I'm just doing what they say. If they can, I may. It's the price you don't pay for permission to stray. Some areas are grey. So put those handcuffs away, eh? In a specific and limited way. And of course, when something very bad happens, police murder someone, terrorists murder someone, etc., bad natural disaster, there seems to be only one phrase that our political leaders can come up with. So, yeah, this is called thoughts and prayers. Racist terror, and prayers. Coffin bearer, thoughts and prayers. Crossing drowning, thoughts and prayers. Solemn frowning, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers and sad reactions, thoughts and prayers, but never actions. Stabbed and killed, thoughts and prayers. Life unfulfilled, thoughts and prayers. Death in prison, thoughts and prayers. No decision, just thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers, respectful silence, thoughts and prayers, and yet more violence. Killer storms, thoughts and prayers. Global warming, thoughts and prayers. Climate chaos, thoughts and prayers. Recycled pathos, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers and resolutions, thoughts and prayers, but no solutions. Thoughts and prayers and bare exchanges. Thoughts and prayers, but nothing changes. They've bought up shares in thoughts and prayers. Back onto the subject of COVID. As a lot of you know, I work on the night tube on London Underground. And aside from anything else, it is a marvellous source of material for a poet, I can tell you. In normal times, one of my favourite poems that I've written that I include in most of my sets is called Night Tube. It's a 5-minute long thing about various of our passengers. All very kind about them. Anyway, these aren't normal times, so I'm not going to do that one. But I kind of updated it, much shorter. I have a new one that I wrote called Night Tube, the COVID-19 remix. It's just like any other Saturday night, but without the vomit and with no one to fight. It's just like Night Tube, but nobody's pissed and the two people there are socially distant. It's just like every other morning after, but without the bleary eyes and laughter. There's no one to beg from, no tickets to tout, because staying at home is the new going out. The work-weary nurse has the carriage to himself, the space is ace and it's good for your health. It's just like a metro, but with no one to transport. The mice are in the ticket hall, they've come up from the platform. It's just like a railway, but with hardly any passengers, no one to help you and no one to hassle you. It's more like a ghost town than an underground station. It feels like a church, but without a congregation. It's just like a playground without any children. They're cooped up at home so the virus doesn't kill them. It's a place built for people with no people to be seen, because you can't get close to anyone. You don't know where they've been. It used to move the millions, the whole world and her wife. It vibrated with vitality, but now it's lost its life. Thank you very much. I have to say, one of my favourite rhymes I've come up with this year is to rhyme piss stand with socially distant. There you go. Do you remember when back in May, when the government was trying to get people to go back to school before they'd established properly that it was safe to do so? The Daily Mail ran a front page story: "Let our teachers be heroes." And they had a picture of a teacher and a kid on there. By the way, it transpired that the picture, which had like white teacher, white kid, was actually cropped from a picture that originally had black kids in it, but the Daily Mail cropped it out. They're just, how low can that newspaper go? Anyway, so in response to the headline, "Let our teachers be heroes," I wrote this. It's called "Let Them Be Heroes." Teachers say, let Daily Mail writers be heroes. Let them walk naked through war zones. Let them battle with an invisible enemy. Let them fall on the battlefield in even greater numbers than they already have. Safe in the knowledge that they will be lionised at the daily briefing, and that Matt Hancock may issue a badge in their honour. Don't let today's namby-pamby elf and safety culture stand in their way. Teaching assistants and other school workers say, let Daily Mail photocroppers be heroes. Let them notice we exist. Let them work a day in our school, maintaining social distance from 5-year-olds who crave their physical comfort and spread their breath and tears around like poster paint. Let them kill and die in the service of the greater good. Said greater good being the return of the wage slaves to their workstations. Let Daily Mail writers be heroes just for one day. Cool. And then we got the news, didn't we? Then we got the news a couple of months ago that President Bolsonaro of Brazil had got coronavirus. Bolsonaro had been swaggering around going, can't hurt me, what's all this social distancing nonsense, blah blah blah. One of his big things being a right-wing populist is what a macho tough man he is. Anyway, so I wrote this poem when he got COVID. He was socially close, untamed, unmasked, his magic medicine uncast. He didn't care, so he never asked. He'll brush it off, he's so athletic, the tough guy leading man aesthetic, no chance it makes him empathetic. He'll rise above like Kilimanjaro, always survive like the cult of Skaro. COVID can't hurt Bolsonaro. Lesser beings must feel jealous, adding to the number swellers dying in Brazil's favelas. So sod the safety tests and treatments, economic growth achievements matter more than your bereavements. He'll rise above like Kilimanjaro, always survive like the cult of Skaro. COVID can't hurt Bolsonaro. Obviously, those of you who are Doctor Who fans would appreciate the pop culture reference to the cult of Skaro. Those who aren't, by all means, look it up, or just take my word for it that they're a little group of Daleks whose job it is to always survive, always keep the Dalek race going. Pick for Britain. Have any of you gone out and done that? Have you seen the adverts? Pick for Britain. This poem's called Pick for Britain. Britain needs more pickers. We have a picking drought, particularly since we kicked our usual pickers out. So pick yourself up and dust yourself down. Pick up a lift heading out of your town. Here's your harvest basket, fill it. Harnessing the wartime spirit. Dig for Britain got us through. Let's pick to fight off COVID too. Pick pears, pick apples, pick green gauges. Pick for barely living wages. Pick for market, pick for health, pick for someone else's wealth, pick for fibre and nutrition. Why exactly pick for Britain? Pack your pickings in your bag, sewn up from a Union flag. Masks and mittens, kicked and bitten, tick what's written, pick for Britain. Thank you very much. Of course, you know there are only a limited number of things you can do in groups of more than 6 at the moment. So here we go. Things you can do in groups of more than 6. Earn, learn, wed, be dead, compete if you're elite. Kill, but not chill, picket or play cricket. There you go. Right. We have arrived at the final poem, which means before I do this, I've got to plug stuff again. Okay, so this final poem is also in this book, Coronaverses, Poems from the Pandemic. Listen, the poems in here are really good. This is a time capsule of that first week of lockdown. Okay, so this is not all ranty lefty stuff. A lot of this is just observations about people's fear, about the importance of human touch to people. Some of them are funny, some of them are serious, some of them are formal style, some of them are free verse, and they are for a real range of people. But the voices in here, you need to hear this. Okay, you need to read this, please. And as I said before, it all goes to a very good cause. That very good cause being We Shall Overcome. So it costs £8 to get the printed book. I mean, what a bargain is that? £3.99 to get the ebook if you're an e-booky kind of person. Both can be obtained via my web shop, which is www.janinebooth.com/shop. Please support the Safe and Equal campaign. Please look up the anti-racist resources I mentioned to you before. And please, 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 please do what you can to support Justice for Osim Brown. Really, really important campaign, which is about more than just that one young man. But it is about that one young man, and he needs us. He needs our solidarity. But it's about justice, it's about racism, it's about neurodivergence, it's about discrimination, it's about justice. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with this last and final poem because it was amazing, wasn't it? As soon as the pandemic hit, all those kind of the ideologues of capitalism kind of went quiet, and suddenly everyone thought the state intervention was a good idea. Weird. Okay, so this is about that. It's called Wherefore Art Thou Capitalism. No one's saying leave it to the market. No one's claiming competition's key, that stockbrokers will lead us from the darkness. No one's sneering now at stuff for free. No one claims that laissez-faire will sort it. No one says that we'll be saved by greed. None declare just those who can afford it should get the test or get the care they need. No one says we need more speculators. No one's calling care workers unskilled. No one waits for private ventilators. No one says compassion should be billed. No one says the rich should keep their fortunes instead of sharing wealth for common good. No one says they wouldn't pool resources to help the sick and frightened if they could. No one says it's fine to charge your damnedest. Supply will match demand and set the prices. No one says that mutual aid is madness. No one trusts a banker in a crisis. So where are Adam Smith and Milton Friedman? Where's triumphant capitalism hiding? Where's the wealth of nations when you need them? Tell the stock exchanges when you're fine, but keep your guard for when this crisis passes. And profit praisers raise their voice anew. When corporate beggars claim their place as masters, remember, solidarity got us through. Tell them that we won't come back to serve them. Tell them profit damages our health. We'll share the riches, for we all deserve them, and build a democratic commonwealth. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching for this whole hour and a bit of ranting, rhyming and revolting of Janine Booth versus cops and COVID. And like my page and check out my website, follow, etc. And hopefully, if you'll enjoy it, you'll come to the next one yet to be announced. See you then. Goodbye. Solidarity.